What's up? It's the Crypto Bunker podcast. So I'm back. I have gone back and forth a lot on, many different ideas, thoughts I've had. I've, you know, gone down the Bitcoin maxi rabbit hole. I've gone down the rabbit hole of like screw technology. I'm just gonna put my money into silver and just kind of bunker down. Um, And so going through these phases, I've gone through periods of negative sort of pessimism towards crypto. Politically, I don't really agree with a lot of what's going on right now. And so I've gone down that sort of thought pattern of like, am I supporting this sort of corruption of like this technocracy sort of future? Where there's more control, and more sort of like digital slavery, if you want to say that, where we're sort of merging with the machines, and we're sort of um, kind of forced into using um, blockchains, which are public, so there are trackable, traceable transactions happening on the blockchain. So is this a backdoor way for the sort of technocracy and control that people, like Whitney Webb and Catherine Austin Fitts talk about? And so I've kind of gone through all of these different iterations of thinking around crypto. And I've also, listened to a lot of crypto podcasts, whether it's the Empire podcast, Unchained, um, these sort of uh, you know, the Blockworks family of podcasts. I've obviously listened to Bankless. I've listened to, Daily Gway. I've listened to Robert Breedlove. I've listened to Michael Saylor. I've really gone down, many different thought experiments, if you want to say that. But in today's day and age, it's so easy to move money that if you get caught up into some of these narratives, you end up changing your path potentially of what you set out to do. And so I think it's important to, not totally throw away anything, but also to stick to your principles and stick to your guns. And honestly, like looking back at it, I've made a lot of mistakes in crypto, and I should have way more digital, physical crypto, if you want to say, just than I do. I've screwed up so much, and I'm sort of at square one. I'm sort of back to where I was in, just starting out. So I'm sort of, I do have exposure to Bitcoin in my retirement, which has worked out well, but um, that's not real Bitcoin. It's just, doesn't keep up with it. It probably does 60% of the price, including the dividend that it pays out. So that's done well, but obviously hasn't done as well as, just holding Bitcoin. So there's a lot of narratives that have been going around. Bitcoin dominance obviously is a huge narrative. There's, people like in terms of the Athena co-founder, who are coming out and saying, all the L1s are overvalued massively, including, Ethereum, Solana, any alt L1s, SWI, things like that, just all completely overvalued. And Bitcoin dominance is going to go up to 90%, where Bitcoin is the only valuable thing in the crypto ecosystem. And it's interesting that he's saying this. I think it's a very closed-minded viewpoint of what Ethereum could be. And I think that there's so much tribalism and so much strong opinion, strong opinions strongly held, right? So it's definitely not a situation of strong opinions loosely held, which I think philosophically is a better place to be, especially in the world we're going into, where there's massive changes happening at quick, rates. And so I'm seeing all of these podcasters and these people are VCs and they're sort of like jaded, right? Because they're so deep into the crypto ecosystem that they end up um again like forming these strong opinions because crypto is so early still and crypto is so volatile that if you don't have anything to hold on to, you're just like lost. You get lost in these people's opinions, and you kind of form your own opinions around those, and you end up sort of getting lost in that. I think this has sort of happened to David Hoffman of Bankless, which Sasal has talked about on the Daily Gwei podcast. And he had him on and addressed it head on. Like he's like, you're sort of going to all these different groups of opinions and you're falling into each one and you're sort of where's your core, where's your core principles that you're holding to. And David's saying the core principles are there. I'm just trying to get a viewpoint of these people's views. But you're also giving those types of people a platform and you're giving them the light of day, if you will, which is okay. But when these people have such strong opinions, so strongly held about Ethereum, especially, you have to question that because Ethereum is not a VC chain. It's not a place where venture capitalists can go to invest and then dump on their holders, right? It's not a place where you can go and own a big portion of the supply. The supply is very decentralized. It's more decentralized than Bitcoin in terms of holders and the amount of those holders in terms of what they have. So, um, I don't think people are thinking big enough with Ethereum. I think that we're just kind of caught in this like gambling sort of trading casino vibe still, in some people's mind where they're like saying, it's all about revenues of Ethereum, and if the revenues aren't good enough, then the coin's just not going to do anything. But there's all these little factions of what Ethereum is and what Ethereum could be, right? So there's the people who are like, Ethereum is all about, being digital oil, and some people are like, Ethereum's all about being trustware, and some people are like, Ethereum's just like a meme coin, like Bitcoin, or it's just a store of value, or it can it's a digital bond, right? It's a internet bond where you can earn interest on it, and it's all about earning interest. And there's people who are like, yeah, it's all about DeFi, and people are saying it's all about NFTs in the future of like when ETH goes up a lot and people have money to invest. I think a lot of it is just overthinking it. But at the same time, we're sort of like going into these different sectors of what Ethereum is, but we're not like thinking of it on like a societal sort of cultural level of what it actually is. And I think that what Ethereum actually is a social consensus. It's a decentralized social network, really. It's really it's a place where you can own a piece of that network, right? So a lot of young people are really struggling right now. And when you listen to them, they say, we want to buy real estate, right? We want to be able to buy a place. We want to build community, and we want to have a shared resources with that community so that we can afford things, right? Because things are so expensive. These ideas are coming up more and more with where people want to pool their resources together and then go in on investments that you can build community around, you can own that land, and you can coordinate socially. But all of that can be done now on Ethereum. So it's a massive idea. And I think because we've gone through these bubble cycles of crypto, people are so broken. Um, I don't think that they're going to last though. Like these types of people um are not going to last because they're not thinking about social consensus. They're not thinking about the future of artificial intelligence, where we're going to need a place to go online where we own our data, where we own a piece of a network, or we own a piece of a protocol that allows you to trade with people peer to peer, that allows you to do that with no intermediary, that gives you the access to your capital in a decentralized, censorship resistant, nation state censorship resistant, quantum resistant, AI hacker resistant way. And so I know that there's those aspects of things. And again, like we're just not thinking of it big enough, but it is the most secure platform on the earth. It's more secure than Bitcoin, and that will be a controversial take. But if you look at the future of Bitcoin, the Bitcoiners have always said, and they haven't said this recently because they're completely avoiding the problem, but they've always said that transaction fees are what is going to secure the network in the future. So transaction fees are basically at all-time lows. If you don't count the first couple of years when the network was just still kind of bootstrapping, if you look from like 2013 to now, or like 2011 to now, we're basically at all-time lows for transaction fees on Bitcoin. So the network is not being used at all. NFTs are dead on it because, Lightning is kind of dead. It's never gained traction. The only thing that really Bitcoin is it's like a digital gold, right? That you can secure, and there's only 21 million. So that's the whole purpose behind it, is that there only will ever be 21 million. Now, the issue with that is that because the transaction fees have come down so much, and because the next halving in 2028 and the next halving in 2032, the fees will go down another 50% and then another 50%, right? So and at this point, with AI data centers coming online, and maybe by 2032 we have artificial superintelligence and there's data centers everywhere, and this data center space is going to be much more valuable to housing this artificial intelligence than being a Bitcoin miner. So a lot of them are already going offline to do AI. Some of them are switching completely to Ethereum treasury companies. Some of them are switching to BitTensor network, which is decentralized artificial intelligence that is being built. Some of them are still doing Bitcoin mining, and that's fine. But also geopolitically, there's issues. Like when we bombed Iran, 25% of the hash rate came offline. So obviously Iran is running almost 25% of the network. So there's all of these issues with the security of Bitcoin. And if the fees don't come in, there is a way that is going to happen to attack the network. Malicious actors will be able to attack the network. So in the future, we need a place that's decentralized where we can go and we can form organizations. We can form decentralized autonomous organizations. We can form a governance structure around that where, like Sushi, right? Sushi DAO, where we can go and we can exchange ideas. We can vote on things. We can have discourse with the community. And all in a way that is censorship resistant, right? And this is going to be needed. And if we're going to also go into a future where we need universal basic income, it only makes sense to do that on the Ethereum blockchain because it's the most secure, it's the most widely adopted. It's going to be adopted by more banks and institutions. And the distribution of that is probably going to happen on a layer two solution, and all you're going to need to do is download a wallet. And maybe it's, maybe it's through things like BitTensor, maybe it's, some kind of decentralized AI that hooks up to the Ethereum blockchain that can then distribute this universal basic intelligence, right? It could be, you could even think of it as universal basic intelligence, which I think has been talked about by Sam Altman, Elon, people like that. So these are the people who are building these things. So we have to understand sort of where we're headed, but we need to take possession of our digital identities, and we need to understand who we are, and we need to move on to the most secure and decentralized and long-term secure network, which is going to be Ethereum. Um, and so I think this is just an idea, but I think that young people have to understand that it's not all about these like meme coins and scam coins and gambling. Like they're not thinking long term. They're trying to chase that short-term gain when in reality you could just put your money into ETH, or things like Aave, right? Like DeFi protocols that are tested and have tons of total value locked on them, and are building trust throughout the years of existence, right? It takes a long time for banks to build trust. And that's what Aave is looking to do. They're building trust. And that's what Ethereum is looking to do. It's building trust. And right now, we've had 10 years of Ethereum's existence. We've had probably, 8 years of, maybe 7 years of Aave's existence. And really only like 5 of like actual DeFi existence that people are using. So it's a very young network. It's a very young idea. And I think as young people, we have to have more of a long-term investment thesis. This is like baby boomers investing in the S&P 500 in the 1990s and the 80s, and understanding that that's what Ethereum is, because Ethereum has thousands of projects built on top of it, right? It's just like the S&P 500 because it has a wide variety of different things happening on it. There's digital identity, there's DeFi, there's exchanges, there's decentralized autonomous organizations, there's NFTs, right? There's all of these types of things happening on there. There's real world assets now, right? People who are bringing money markets, and there's stable coins. There's all these different things happening, right, on chain. And so it's a really kind of cool thing, and it gives you hope for the future to kind of think about, what that future could look like, and kind of how much innovation and how much participation can happen in that. And I think that even elections will be on chain. You will get, a token that everyone will have one if you're a US citizen, and you'll sign up for that. And then you'll be able to put your vote on chain, so we know exactly pseudonymously where the votes are for each one. We don't have to worry about election interference. We don't have to worry about any of these things, because it's all going to be done with a guaranteed and verifiable way. But I think the issue is that there's so much misinformation, disinformation out there about crypto, that I worry a little bit that we're losing the long-term messaging. And I think that we're allowing the institutions and the banks and the hedge funds to come in and kind of potentially own a lot of the network. And we need to, secure that block space as individuals, so that in the future that individuals have the power to change the world, right? And that's what Ethereum wants to do. It wants to decentralize the world. It wants to create a trust network. And it wants to create a social community and a culture. And in the world we live in now, when culture and social activity is sort of dead in the real world, it makes sense to, to in some ways decentralize it. And then maybe that turns into more in-person things. Maybe it turns into communities like Zuzalu, and it turns into network states like Balaji talks about. But Ethereum is such a bigger thing than Bitcoin. I don't understand if Ethereum is already adopted as a store of value across layer twos, across individuals, across stakers, all of these, and now we have treasury companies. So it's obvious that ETH is a store of value. And if ETH is a store of value, just like Bitcoin is a store of value, ETH is like 1,000 other things. So it's like it's everything. ETH is it will be so much bigger than Bitcoin. It should be it should be probably 10x bigger than Bitcoin. Um, so if Bitcoin's 10 trillion, then ETH should be 100 trillion, right? So it should be that would make ETH, about 900,000 a coin or something like that. So um, this is reality. It's not just an illusion, but it's a possibility. It's not, and things can go wrong, right? Things like I'm talking about, if we can't like bring all these factions together and just rally behind to something that is trying to make the world a better place, we're just going to end up, you know, attacking each other, hurting each other with all these different protocols. And it's unfortunate that someone like Raoul Pal, for example, who knows kind of about Ethereum, he believes in it. He thinks that all the banks will be connected to it because Ethereum is like Microsoft, where it's more secure, and Solana is kind of like Apple, which is kind of a closed system, but you need an open system for finance. And I think he's dead on with that. But he still like he just keeps changing to different like altcoins, like Sui. Now he's in Sui, right? And that's outperformed everything. So he's done great. And he's in Ethereum NFTs because so that's his ETH bet, right? Is Ethereum NFTs. Um, so I just wish that people like that or Gary V, even like people start talking about Ethereum again. Ashton Kutcher, these, just like I get it. I do understand the concerns that some people have in the space about it. But I just think we're missing the bigger picture. And I hope that this video kind of gave a little bit of that bigger picture today. I sort of just went off the cuff of things I've been thinking about. And I hope to make more of this type of content for people. Talking about Ethereum on more of a philosophical level, um, to me is more interesting than just doing charts, which is what I've done for, 5 years on this channel. Um, and so I think that it's needed. There's a lot of smart people in the Ethereum space. Vitalik is very philosophical, but he's very intellectual. So if we can't get outside that brain-bound intellect and think about more of a higher spiritual perspective of what we can bring, what is Ethereum trying to accomplish in a spiritual sense? That's kind of what I'm interested in a cultural, spiritual pursuit, an idea, an ideal, right? An ideal, moral values, right? What is it trying to bring to the world in that aspect? Um, that's kind of what I hope to bring a little bit more. I'm interested in the future of this network. I'm interested in young people understanding this network. Because I think that a lot of them are hopeless financially, culturally, socially, on an individual level. They're being completely broken down by this capitalistic system. And so I think Ethereum is more of it's more of a social movement, but it also has capitalistic aspects to it. But it at its core, it has a social cultural movement. And I think that is something we have to focus on more. in the Ethereum community. I hope that I can be accepted back into the Ethereum community, because I do think it's important for the future, and um, I hope that we can be more open and we can have more openness and not have these closed off opinions about things for the future. So thank you. If you like this content, if you want more of this type of content, please like, please subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.